Hello everyone!
Today we're going to do a tutorial on how I make my Resin Geode coasters inspired by elements in nature. These coasters were specifically inspired by these two agate slices. The first step is to mix your epoxy resin according to the directions on the bottle. For step 2, you're going to mix your colorants into your epoxy resin. Be sure to save a little more than half of your clear resin. Links to all the products used are listed in the tutorial linked below. If you are trying to achieve the same effects that I did, make sure you pour your pigments in the same order I pour them in this video. The first color I use is an army green, and I colored this resin with alcohol ink. I pour a thin ring of this resin on the outside of each of the coaster molds. Next, I use epoxy resin that I have colored with pigment powder and pour directly on top of the first ring that I poured. I am using a pearl opal color pigment powder here. Working towards the center of each of the coaster molds, I pour another ring of resin that I have colored with a lime green resin dye. To keep the effects interesting, I pour some of this resin dye in different areas of the coaster mold, as you can see on the screen. Next, I come in with some more epoxy resin that I have colored with a metallic blue pigment powder. I do not want too much blue in these coasters, so I'm using it sparingly, as you can see. This last colored ring that I'm pouring has been colored with a dark green acrylic ink. Again, to keep things interesting, I poured a couple dots into that mold instead of a ring. Here, I come back in with a little more of the resin that I colored with the opal pigment powder and add it to just a couple of the coasters. And now for the fun part. From about 6 inches above each of the coaster molds, pour clear resin into the molds, filling them up all the way. I decided not to take out this next part of the video. You can see that I moved some epoxy resin from some of the coasters into another coaster that I didn't have enough epoxy resin to fill up. I think it's a good idea to show people that it's not perfect, this process. You're always going to run into issues, and sometimes they even work out for the best, making some really neat effects in the end. If this does happen to you, don't panic. You can either mix up some more clear resin and fill up that coaster, or carefully do what I did and just move some over from one coaster mold to another. At this stage, you want to lightly put your heat gun over each of the coaster molds from about 6 inches away to pop any air bubbles. This part is totally optional, but I am just adding some of the leftover colored epoxy that I had to each of the coasters. This is also an optional step, but I like to add some embellishments to the center of each coaster. Here, I use bronze gold glitter glass. If your embellishments are not sinking to the bottom of the coaster, use a popsicle stick and lightly stir in the center of each coaster. Also, applying some heat with the heat gun into the center of the coasters helps those embellishments to sink to the floor of the molds. Let your epoxy cure overnight and then demold. Here are how my coasters turned out. I am happy with the final result of these coasters. What do you guys think? Here is a close-up shot of each of them. And here are some still shot pictures of each of the coasters. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you subscribe, like, and share this video. See you in the next video.